You've been waiting to fist your way to victory and loot. Well, wait no more, because the monk talents are actually live on the alpha, and today we're gonna be looking at Windwalker. It has been long and anticipated because monks never had, you know, the old school talents, and let's see if they actually work really well. So stay tuned, because we will be discussing every possible build that we can see, that we can tell, and even with all the missed talents. But before we get into that, do you want to have some cool swag? Of course you do. Who doesn't? You want to wear it, you want to show it to people and showcase the brand Marcelian&Flame. Listen, look at this, super cool on cooldown, because we're reporting on the news. What the?
Oh, this one! Look at this! Look at this!
Man, get the fuck out of here!
Come on, look.
It's Marcelian. Yeah, get the fuck out. You can actually check our TeePublic link down below in the description. There is a 35% discount until August the 20th for all of the merch. So if you want to support the channel a little bit more, give a little bit back for everything that we do, because we do daily shit and we try our best to cover as much as we can. Check the link down below. You can get t-shirts, mugs, cases, hoodies, all sorts of things with the logos. And obviously this is not just the thing that you're getting. There's TLF versions, there's on cooldown, there's Assassino, Criticalando. Alright, you get it. Let's actually talk about Windwalker. And since this is the first monk video that we will be looking at, we will check the general talents first. The general talent trees basically are the same as with all of the classes, and if you have been watching any of our videos or have checked the talent calculators so far that are available on Wowhead and other sites like that, you'll probably know what they are about. I'm not gonna go into all of the details because it's pretty much the same. It means it's not gonna be a surprise. You do get general stuff, part of your kits, cooldown, CCs, abilities, utility, all that stuff that are usually baseline for you. So, and with that out of the way, because I know a lot of people have a little bit of a question about this and a little bit confused and maybe a little bit up in arms. The talent trees that we have right now are not like the old school talents where you just get new abilities and passives. They're also building up your class as you level up. So you unlock abilities that you've had pretty much baseline in past expansions. So it is supposed to be like that. You are supposed to unlock stuff like Tiger's Lust, Paralyze, Fortified Brew, Expel Harm. All of these, even cooldowns like Dampen, Harm, and Diffuse, which have been kind of talents, but you kind of always had at least one of them. You can have them all through the talent system. So you're not going to have them in the spellbook, because the talent system is supposed to be a combination of your spellbook, class trainer, and talents that we've had so far. So with that out of the way, there's a couple of things that might cross your mind, because they're just a little bit weird for Windwalker to have something that maybe we've never had before, or haven't had since MOP. Maybe I didn't play MOP, so I don't know what monks did that back then. Who cares? It's been a long time. Soothing Mist is something that you can talent into, which is weird, because why and when will you ever use Soothing Mist? And you might want to talent it if you want to go on the left hand side and get some more utility. But then again, like I said, it depends exactly on how the numbers scale, because right now it seems like it will scale with spell power. If you look at the tooltips, and obviously that cannot be, it has to scale with attack power if it's going to be a Windwalker and maybe Brewmaster talent as well. And obviously it depends on numbers. It's good to have the variety and be the hybrid and, you know, help your teammate out, but if it's not very significant, chances are that you'll likely want to DPS instead of heal almost all of the time. So they would have to make it very enticing, and obviously numbers are subject to change right now in alpha, so nothing that we can make an opinion of is enough. The numbers are bullshit. It's not gonna do much of anything. However, there's one thing when it comes to the healing that you might want, and you don't have to go to Soothing Mist. You can actually path down from the middle, from Rising Sun Kick, and that is, after you get Vivify, of course, you'll get Vivacious Vivification, which is so nice to say, which makes Vivify instant. This is a big thing for a melee hybrid, because you think of red paladins, you think of enhancement shamans. Enhancement at the very least can get instant heals, but they have to build them up and they have to like lose a lot of damage to get those. Similar to red paladins, you sacrifice, you know, your resource to make the heals, to use the instant heals, let's say, and heal up, while I don't see that happening with Windwalker. So this is a little bit of a disconnect from the cost of being able to instantly heal as a melee DPS hybrid. I'm not sure if this is going to remain the way it is. because it's very strong. Instant Vivifies are very strong, considering that you're also getting it from the upgrades to Vivify prior that just increases its healing by 20 and 40% respectively. So we'll see. It's interesting to have, but I will remain skeptical and keep my eyes open to see how this will eventually be tuned out. There's a couple of throughput nodes like Ferocity of Zuen, which is a 2-pointer that gives you 4% extra damage. It's kind of a free pointer, but kind of a free node, but not really. But you can definitely skip healing if you just want the damage, you don't really care. You can go here. Over the course of the talent though, there are about 6 not implemented talents. So it's a little bit hard to judge like how the general talent system are supposed to look like. Obviously, we can theorize about it, but that's as much as we can since we cannot test it into practice. It's going to be hard. And even if we could test them all, the content that we have available right now is a little bit minimalistic. So, with that out of the way, there are some of them also are not implemented correctly. So like Fortified Brew still affects stagger, so it's basically the Brewmaster spell code, spell ID, whatever it is, put into the talent tree, so that will have to change. And a lot of the talents that are supposed to give you abilities don't work, like Roll, Expel, Harm, and Provoke. You already have these abilities and you don't have to talent into them. So I'm not sure, for instance, like the Roll talent, is that supposed to give you a second charge of Roll? Obviously, you're not going to get a second charge of Expel, Harm, or Taunt, but that's about it. And if you go all the way down, you'll notice capstones, and they seem to be very centric towards a specific spec. You have Summon Jade statue on the left-hand side and Summon Black Ox statue on the right-hand side, and the missing one for Windwalker in the middle, which is not even implemented, it's under construction, is what we can see right now. And with that out of the way, let's go into the actual spec talent tree, which starts with Fists of Fury, obviously, and you will unlock more and more of your core abilities as you go further down the talent tree. You will notice many Torghast powers making it into the talent tree's conduits from Shadowlands right now, and Azurite powers from BFA, which are actually kind of cool because at least in Shadowlands, when it comes to conduits, Windwalker was one of the specs that have more the stronger potency conduits as opposed to other specs in the game. And obviously, some of the old school Azurite trades making it back is a little bit of, I can't believe I'm saying nostalgia feel right now. BFA was what, over 2 to 3 years ago. So you will notice all of those, and you can have obviously path towards a different side of the tree. The left-hand side seems to be very focused around spinning crane kick playstyles. I want to say AoE because this is clearly AoE. However, the talent tree doesn't seem like it's oriented towards AoE here, single target here, and stuff like that. So we'll get into that in a second. But you do have Dance of Chi-Ji, which is why I want to start with this is obviously the most iconic thing that Windwalker does right now. It's the biggest source of its damage and so on, at least in AoE, which is cool. You still have also on the left hand side Rushing Jade Wind, which thankfully it's not being forced down your throat if you don't want it. To progress to the talent tree, you can go on the right hand side instead of Rushing Jade Wind. So this is still a weird talent. It costs 1 chi. And there might be a world, since I couldn't test all of the talents right now, there might be a world where your influx of chi is so high that you would like another chi spender. And this is an easy AoE to spend it, so cast, set and forget. It obviously depends on how much damage it ends up doing once the expansion is released, so it's not essentially a waste. And it's no longer a big contentious talent like it is right now, where it's at opposition with way stronger options. You don't sacrifice too much, you sacrifice 1 point for it, and it's 1 point for an ability that functions within your rotation, so it helps your mastery, helps combo strikes and all of that. So that could be good, but we'll see exactly how that plays out because we couldn't really get a clear indication of how important this would be since not everything is working. And if you keep going down on the left-hand side, you'll see Bone Dust Brew, which is basically the Necrolord Covenant and goes into the Capstone Attenuation, which if I'm not mistaken, this is probably the legendary. I haven't played Necro Monk in a while. I don't think this is Bone Marrow Hops. No, so basically when Bone Dust Brew does shadow damage, the damage and healing itself is increased, and also has, when it deals the damage, it reduces its cooldown. You also have Calculated Strikes, which is obviously a fuel for Dance of Chi-Ji. The potency conduit that we have right now, that's also good. Obviously, the purpose of this thematically is to, you know, get that Dance Chi proc, make sure that you have all of the stacks of the extra damage on spinning crank kick from all the targets that you're hitting, slap the bone dust brew down, and do a big dance, or, you know, get your Storm Earth and Fire out as well if that's your jam. And we're going on to the middle side of the talent tree. Speaking of Storm Earth and Fire, the middle side is basically where you will unlock pretty much your core DPS cooldowns. And at a choice node closer to the middle, you have Storm Earth and Fire versus Serenity. As always, you'll have to choose between the two. And they go straight down into Drinking Horn cover. And this is going to be slightly weird. Well, because you can actually skip them. So basically, Storm Earth and Fire is a second charge to your already existing Storm Earth and Fire. Simple, from what we can tell so far, from what's implemented on the alpha, because otherwise Drinking Horn cover would be a little bit weird, which makes you extend the duration of either Storm Earth and Fire or Serenity as you spend chi, or you at least guess spending chi spending abilities, since Serenity makes them free. That could be interesting. The duration and how it affects the overall damage output could decide whether or not you want one or the other. Let's say the second charge of Storm Earth and Fire, or you get Serenity. Right now, I'm not sure if Serenity is supposed to replace Storm Earth and Fire. Doesn't work on alpha. I don't think it's supposed to. It says that it's supposed to replace it, but it doesn't really work. So we'll see exactly how that turns out. It's likely going to function similarly as it is now. So. But you can actually skip them, right? So you can actually go to the sides and go down straight to Drinking Horn, or similar, even further down to Zuen, and never take any of these, which, I mean, if that's your thing, go for it. I don't know, I guess it depends on how much damage you're trading off. And Zuen is, going straight from Zuen, it's Zuen Bonanza, man. There's all the Zuen gas fillers, whatever you want to call it, that you can get that you've had in the last couple of expansions. So obviously you get the cooldown, then you have Zuen's Bond, which is a little bit to the left, making abilities that activate combo strikes reduce the cooldown of his Zuen by 0.1 seconds and the damage, and increase the damage of the cooldown by 10%. Then you have Fury of Zuen, which, if I'm not mistaken, this was a BFA Azurite. Your combo strikes grant a stacking 1% chance for your next Fist of Fury to grant a lot of haste and invoke Zuen the White Tiger for 8 seconds. This is pretty cool. We've played with this in BFA. It was really awesome. On the right hand side to it, you have Empowered Tiger Lightning. Zuen strikes your enemies with Empowered Lightning for 4 seconds, dealing 10% of the damage you have dealt to those targets in the last 4 seconds. Obviously, this definitely feels like AoE-ish, but I wouldn't be surprised if this would be really good in single target as well. Zuen Battle Gear as well makes a return with Rising Sun Kick. Critical strikes reduce the cooldown of Fists of Fury by 5 seconds. When Fist of Fury ends, the critical strike chance of Rising Sun Kick is increased by 50% for 5 seconds, and the better you manage those 5 seconds, if you can get like 2 Sun Kicks within those 5, although that's, I don't know if mathematically that is possible, but I guess it depends on the level of gear and how you're playing your rotation. Maybe I'm thinking Weapons of Order a little bit too much, but that doesn't matter. If you go down, you do have Invoker's Delight, which is the current legendary that Windwalkers use, and I think this is the one they've been using the entire expansion, or at least for the majority of it. It's good. It's, I guess, a little bit boring. You get 33% haste for 20 seconds. You also have the fuel from the haste fuel from Fury of Zuen, so I don't know when the diminishing returns will hit, but maybe they won't. Who knows? It's haste. On the opposite side of the capstones is Kiefer's Skyreach, which is currently not implemented. It's an interesting talent. It definitely feels very raid focused, since it does give you that charge, which is usually good because, you know, you zigzag between the boss, and the mechanics, dropping puddles, dodging things, and hopping back onto the boss is good because, as we all know, Windwalkers definitely needed more mobility. I'm sorry, Red Paladins. Long arm of the what? Nah. Just stay there. Just be a wheelchair. Obviously, this also doesn't, I mean, it's not obvious, but it doesn't work on alpha either, so I couldn't really get a feel of it. It seems like it's, at least for a raid boss, it can be interesting because every 1 minute you can have 6 seconds of 50% extra crit chance against your target. I don't know how well you can control this. I suppose you can just hold off on using Tiger Palm if you want to match this with obviously your cooldowns, you're probably going to use this in conjunction with Storm Earth and Fire and or Serenity or Zuen as well, and use those 6 seconds to explode with like guaranteed crits everywhere, right? So much crit. This is going to be interesting. We'll see how that plays out once we actually have the raids. And we go to the right hand side, which is, let's say, the kind of weird part of the talent tree, because you're not really sure what it's supposed to accomplish, because it doesn't really have an identity, or at least a straightforward identity. It's just a lot of buffs and fillers, which, I mean, in and of itself, that's pretty good. Because you do have buffs to Fist of Fury with open palm strikes, again, the Azurite power from BFA, and flashing fists, making Fists of Power hit harder, but then again, Fists of Fury usually is ideally used in AoE. I don't know how good it is in single target, because it definitely feels like Sun Kick does way more damage to single target, than you would waste a lot of time casting Fist of Fury, so you'll probably cancel it unless you get enough powers in Fist of Fury and the stacking power, which is in the talent as well, where it will eventually deal decent amount of damage as you're waiting for Sun Kick. And especially if you play Whirling Dragon Punch, which is further down the list, it might be good. Well, and you also have on the same part of the talent tree buffs to Sun Kick with Glory of the Dawn and Rising Star. So one is AoE, one single target. Then Jade Ignition, which is a little bit to the side, that you do have to get to go further down. Jade Ignition is basically a spinning crane kick buff, once again, where all the spinning crane kick is to the left hand side of the talent tree. So you'll probably have to branch out this way if you want, you know, for whatever reason, if you want the meme spinning crane kick build and just get all the spinning crane kick talents, then you'll have to branch out like this. Strike of the Windlord is further down the list and it's back. And you do have to talent it to Jade Ignition, which, I mean, is not necessarily a bad thing, because Strike of the Windlord is pure AoE. I mean, the damage that it deals is neither here nor there. The numbers change. It doesn't feel like it's a lot of damage, but it does feel like it's working a little bit better with the talent underneath it, Thunder Fist, which gives you more damage. So what else is there? Because you can go further down into what I mentioned before, Rising Star. And we also have a weird talent, Teachings of the Monastery, which just makes Agar Palm make Blackout Kick strike additional time, and it stacks up to 3. And Blackout Kick has a 50% extra chance to reduce the cooldown of Rising Sun Kick, which I believe it might be mandatory for raids if you are going here, because you will want all the Sun Kick powers. So if you don't want to go the AoE route, maybe this is a caveat that you can go on the left-hand side where you have a little bit more single target. This has kind of been a Mistweaver thing. I don't know exactly what's it doing here. I mean, it's good. I think it's really good. We'll see exactly how it sims. And if you keep going down, you'll see Whirling Dragon Punch, which is goes down from Rising Star, and you don't have to go into Rising Star to get it. If you're in the middle path and you go all the way to Zuen, you can still get the Dragon Punch, which we've been playing for like what, a gazillion years so far. And to the right of it, we have Feline Stomp. Why didn't we get Weapons of Order? I don't know. Feline Stomp is pretty, but I feel like it's such a less interesting ability compared to Weapons of Order, mechanically as well. It's just AoE damage. That's nice. You can, you know, go all the way down below it to Way of the Fae to get more damage, and yeah, you can reset its cooldown by using abilities. I guess, but Way of the Fae is a very boring capstone, and on the right of it, it's another weird capstone, Last Emperor's Capacitor, which can be interesting. It's basically, I feel like it's a legendary right now, or a Torghast power, or both. The Chi Spenders increase the damage of your next Crackling Jade Lightning by 100% and reduce its cost by 5%, and it stacks all the way up, it stacks 20 times. It stacks for a lot, that's a lot, and it could be a lot of single target damage. And this is where we get a little bit to the weird side of the talent tree, because the whole side, like I said, it doesn't have a clear AoE or clear single target purpose to it. There's just a lot of buffs, and that might not be that bad if you wouldn't feel forced to take some of them. For instance, if you want to go into AoE and get Feline Stomp, you still have to take Rising Star, which, I mean, sure, but that's not AoE. And still, if you want even more AoE and you want to take Jade Ignition and the Windlord, you have to get Glory of the Dawn. There's no other way to get to these without Glory of the Dawn, which is also single target. And if you want massive single target with Emperors, then you have to take pretty much what we've talked about so far with Feline Stomp, which is AoE. and doesn't... I don't know how Emperors is supposed to be related to Feline Stomp. Maybe they can rearrange some of the paths, some of the nodes to actually say, okay, this is, if you want AoE, you go here. If you want single target, you go here. I mean, it's not bad to have good AoE and a good single target, but if you want to optimize it, if you want to specialize into a particular field, it's nice to have a choice, but it doesn't really feel like you have a choice here. You will have to pick them. And before we round up the entire talents, there's a neat little rotation adjustment that you can add to your playstyle, and that's incorporating Touch of Death into your playstyle a little bit more, because there are actually quite a few talents. I think it's totally 5 talents that go into Touch of Death. First of all, you have Fatal Touch from the general talent tree, where you would reduce the cooldown. Well, right now it seems from what we have on offer that we reduce the cooldown to 1 minute, because the baseline cooldown for Touch of Death is 3 minutes, and this would add 2 more minutes reduction. But this feels a little bit overpowered, so I believe that the standard cooldown for Touch of Death will still be 5 minutes, and this will take it down to 3 minutes, because we go to Meridian Strikes from the Windwalker tree, which reduces the cooldown of Touch of Death as you get your combo strikes by 0.25 seconds, also increasing Touch of Death damage. So that would reduce its overall cooldown if it's already a 1 minute and you reduce it even more to, I don't know how much it would be, 45 seconds, something like that. I would imagine that seems a little bit overpowered because of other things on this tree, one of which is the Hidden Master's Forbidden Touch, which makes Touch of Death deal 40% extra damage, and if you can recast it again in 5 seconds before its cooldown is triggered, which, I mean, it sounds really strong because it is, and it's even stronger if you take Fatal Flying Guillotine, which makes Touch of Death strike up to 4 additional nearby targets. And supposedly this, because they don't work right now, so but supposedly you can cast this twice in like a 5 low count cleave target. It's obviously you normally cast it as an executes. Most of the time it could essentially kill the target, but obviously there's the other concept of it, because, you know, from the rank 2 Touch of Death, which is basically the effect that we have right now, which is in the general talent tree, that makes you able to cast it on targets with less than 50% health, dealing 35% of your max health and damage. Now, normally this might actually kill at least one of the targets that you cast it on. But obviously, if it's like high Mythic Plus and the HP counters get to like some crazy numbers, you can actually cast this so you have like about 10 Touch of Death come out. That sounds stupid. And if that comes to fruition, then that's actually pretty cool. So we'll see exactly how it all plays out. And to top it all off, there's Gale Burst, which is actually pretty high up in the talent tree, which is a node that connects a lot of other nodes, that increases the damage of Touch of Death by 10%. Of all damage that you dealt to the target during the duration. So this can end up in a big Touch of Death slap on a lot of targets. We'll see how it actually plays out in practice, because it does take into account when you use the Touch of Death, because you either do like your HP's level worth in damage to all of the targets, or you just do a big chunk of Touch of Death damage. So that will depend. And basically, with all of this out of the way, the talent tree looks actually very interesting. It's definitely doesn't seem to be very straightforward, which maybe it's a good thing, because you can just take the things that you like and you just spread out. For that type of design, I might have liked a few more paths and cross paths. If it's not, okay, this is the clear raid build, is the clear AoE, or clear single target and clear Mythic Plus or whatever. Since we don't have that objectively looking at the talent tree, a couple of more cross paths would be nice to actually go there and do all sorts of weird paths and get like the ideal Windwalker that you would like. And also to get a better feel of how the spec is playing right now. There's way too many unimplemented talents, and talents that are implemented but are bugged. Talents that are also missing, that haven't even been developed yet. So this is the first impression. It's cool. It's interesting to see what they could do with a class that never had, you know, spreading talent trees like this. They had just the Excel shit that we have had in the last couple of years. So far it's looking good. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done into this, so we'll keep our eyes open in the next couple of months before the expansion releases to see how Windwalker plays out in Dragonflight. And hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe this can give you an answer to the question, will you main Windwalker in Dragonflight at least is looking way more interesting than it is now. We'll see exactly how it actually plays out, so we don't have the same cookie cutter build with almost no changes for another 2 years. But thank you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Once again, if you want to support the channel and you want some cool merch and swag to show to your friends, check the TeePublic link down below and get some Marcelian&Flame branded merch in t-shirts, mugs, cases, and all of that stuff. Keychains, I think we do keychains as well, because we do have a discount rolling until the 20th of August for 35%, so now's the time. Thank you for watching the video. See you in the next one.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.